All right, class. So, um, we are looking at the retina here. We do see that the retina has an outer pigmented layer and an inner neural layer. Now, the question is, what is the outer pigmented layer made up of? I want you to remember that the pigmented layer is made up of epithelial cells, and the outer pigmented layer actually absorbs all the extra light that enters the eye. It also provides vitamin A for the photoreceptor cells of the retinal of the inner neural layer. So these are the basic functions of the pigmented layer. Know that it absorbs extra light and provides vitamin A to the photoreceptor cells of the neural layer. Okay, now we will zoom into, so let's say we focus on this part. Okay, if we focus on this part and blow it up, you will see these things. All right, first there will be choroid layer, right? And we are moving from superficial to deep. So here, this is the choroid layer, choroid. Then you see the pigmented layer. It should be green, but again, I cannot change color. So this is the pigmented layer of retina. And then we have the neural layer of retina. I'm blowing up the neural layer a lot. If you look at the neural layer of the retina, the neural layer is made up of three types of cells. Superficially, we have rods and cones. Rods and cones. And these are photoreceptor cells. Photoreceptor cells, rods and cones. Okay. The rods and cones, they synapse with bipolar cells. The bipolar cells. So these are bipolar cells or the bipolar neurons. The bipolar cells then synapse with ganglion cells. They synapse with ganglion cells. These are ganglion cells. Okay. Now the axons of the ganglion cells come together. So these are axons of ganglion cells. And the axons of ganglion cells come together to form optic nerve. So all the axons come out this way, and together they form this nerve called the optic nerve, which is our cranial nerve number 2. Got it? Okay, so let's review. So we are zooming into a section of the retina, and if I blow up, we see part of the choroid, obviously. Then you see the outer pigmented layer, and then we look into the neural layer of retina. The neural layer has different layers of cells. Very superficially, we have photoreceptor cells, which are made up of two types of cells, rods and cones. We will talk about rods and cones in a bit. The rods and cones synapse with bipolar cells. These are bipolar neurons, which are found in the retina of the eye. The bipolar cells in turn synapse with ganglion cells, and the axons of the ganglion cells come together to form the optic nerve. Okay, now for your exam, one thing you must remember. I might ask you to organize the layers from superficial to deep or deep to superficial. So let's play it. If you look at the sagittal section of the eye, what are the layers and what are the different structures that we see from superficial to deep? Most superficially, you have so let's zoom in here. Let's zoom in here. Very superficially, you have the sclera. Deep to sclera, you have part of the choroid. Deep to choroid, you have the retina. You do see the outer pigmented layer of retina. Deep to that, you have the neural layer. If you zoom into the neural layer, from superficial to deep, we have photoreceptor cells, bipolar cells, and ganglion cells. Remember, the axons of the ganglion cells come together to form the optic nerve. Hope that was clear. You must remember the layers from superficial to deep and deep to superficial. Okay, now let's talk a little bit more about rods and cones. We'll start with rods first. It's a photoreceptor cell, we know that. Rods are rod-like in shape, so they're rod-like in shape. We have way more rods in our eye or in the retina as compared to cones. So they are very, very abundant. Rods are responsible for dim light vision. Rod cannot help us to distinguish color. So if you are in a dark place with not very much light, your rod cells are highly active at that point. Let's talk a little bit more about cones now. We have way less cones. The cones are conical in shape. That's the shape. We don't have very many cones. Their number is less. They are less in number. Cones are responsible for bright light vision. And cones, they do help us with color recognition, and they help with color. And let's say you are at a museum appreciating a picture, right? Appreciating a painting. So all the finer details that we can understand and appreciate, those are functions of cones. So cones help in bright light vision, color vision. All right. Okay, so we are done with the retina. Few other things that we will talk about. I'll move on to the okay. I will move on to another slide here. I want you to focus on the ciliary body. As we know, this is ciliary body. And we mentioned that the ciliary body is made up of ciliary muscles. We have ciliary muscles and ciliary processes. We will focus on ciliary muscles. Now, if you look at we will talk about the ciliary muscles, but if you look at the ciliary body, do you see there are string-like structures hanging from there? Those are called suspensory ligaments. I'll just draw here. Those are suspensory ligaments. And the suspensory ligaments are holding lens. Do you see that? Now, we know that a lens can change the curvature, right? How does that happen? Listen carefully. The ciliary muscles, when they relax, so I'll just draw here. Ciliary muscles. when the ciliary muscles relax, that increases the tension on the suspensory ligaments. That increases tension on suspensory ligaments. And that causes the lens to flatten. Okay, so let's review. When the ciliary muscles relax, the ciliary body moves posteriorly, which increases the tension on the suspensory ligaments, and the suspensory ligament flattens out. This is important, or this helps us in far vision. So if we want to look at things which are at a distance, a flattened lens is necessary for far vision. And remember, the shape of the lens is the default position of the lens. This shape of the lens. So the flattened lens is the default of the lens. Now, in contrast, what happens when the ciliary muscles contract? I'll just draw it here. So ciliary muscles, when they contract, that decreases tension on the suspensory ligaments. On suspensory ligaments. The lens, we have a more curved lens at that point. And that is really important for looking at closer objects. Okay, so let's review. When the ciliary muscles contract, the ciliary body moves anteriorly, decreasing the tension on suspensory ligaments, which helps the lens to get more curved. And this is important for looking at closed objects. So when we wish to see close objects, the lens must become more spherical to properly refract light rays and focus an image on the retina. The process of making the lens more spherical to view close-up objects is called accommodation. Accommodation is controlled by the parasympathetic division of the autonomic nervous system. So, this is accommodation of the eye. All right. Few other things. The opening between the iris, this part is called the pupil. The pupil helps light rays to enter the eye, and then that light gets diffracted by the fluid and the lens, and it gets focused onto the retina of the eye. So that's the pupil. What else? At the very posterior side, right here where we have the optic nerve. So right here, this spot is called the blind spot. This is called the blind spot because there is no photoreceptor here. Therefore, no image formation here. No image formation at this point. This is called blind spot. Good. The blind spot is also called as the optic disc, another term. It's also called the optic disc. Same thing. Optic disc or blind spot, same thing. Alright, I'll stop here and then start with another video.